Hey, what's going on, guys and gals? In this particular video, we're going to go over the tap points on the sends page. So we're going to come back over to the channel, though. I've got a sine wave coming in from Reaper, a 50 hertz sine wave coming in raw, and it's coming in at a dead 0 dB. It's a calibrated sine wave. So we're going to pad this down like we always do. We're going to bring this down to where we get around our -18 signal. And as you can see, we've padded that all the way down, and that's just about where we're at. So now we have our workable signal. So now we're going to go over to sends, and now we can look at all of these tap points right here, and we can see what these mean. Now, the easiest way for me to remember this is you can only send channels to buses. And that's what these buses down here are signifying. You send channels to buses, and then we're going to stay on this sends tab. We're going to come down to our buses, and we're going to click on our test signal bus. And buses get sent to matrices. Now, if you notice these tap points up here, we can do these individually. Once we get on these buses, these are locked together. So whatever happens for the odd bus happens for the even bus. So if we come back up here to our buses, or to our channels, I apologize, and click on sends and make sure, come over here. Now we're back to where we send our channels to our buses. Now these buses over here are normally for your monitors. So you need to configure this tap point so as you're mixing the front of house, you don't interfere with the monitor mix. And I know it sounds complicated, guys, but it's not. And that's what we're going to use this sine wave for. It's going to actually show us this. So we're going to bring up our meters now, and this is what we have. We have input channel 1 coming in right here. It's coming through our left and right monitor system right here. It's coming through our main left and right output right here on 7 and 8. And it's going through the alternate output, channel 1. If we come over here now and we click on this test signal on this mix bus, and we bring this up to unity, right there at input, that's what we're on. That is our tap point for this mix bus. And you see this right here, this is what I was talking about. You can't separate these two. We're going to say cancel. So if you move one, it's going to move this other one up here as well. And we're just going to say okay. And now we're going to move it back. These are not independent. They are locked together. So by putting this input here and running this into our mix bus 1, if we bring our meters up now, you see when I move this fader for front of house right here, it's not affecting mix bus number 1 right here. And that's what we want. Because if we're mixing this into front of house, let's say that this is a drum, a kick drum, or even a vocal mic, and we've already got it sent to the in-ear monitor over here on the right, then we don't want this fader to raise or lower that signal going into this in-ear monitor. So that's just an input. It just goes straight through. Now, pre-EQ. I had to do a little bit of thinking on this one because this says it should go before the EQ. Now, I've got an EQ set here with a cutoff, which means that if I click this, you see how that signal goes away there on mix bus number 1? And 7 and 8, and I'm losing that signal? Well, according to this tap point right here, that's pre-EQ. That should not affect that signal, but yet it is. And I'm going to have to try and get in touch with Behringer and find out just exactly why that is. Because the next one is post-EQ, which this means after the signal goes to the EQ, and then I would wholeheartedly expect this to cut that signal just like it's doing. but it shouldn't do it before then. And that's what that pre-EQ is for. Now, most times for your mix buses, we will put these on pre-fader. That's it. So now when we have this, our front of house, we know that when we move these faders, it's not going to affect that mix bus. And that's what we want. And then you have post fader, just like it says. Now when I move this fader, it's going to affect that signal up and down. That signal is now affected post fader, after it goes through the fader. Pre-fader is before it gets to the fader. Really, the only thing you need to remember, guys, is right here. You want to set your mix buses on pre-fader, the ones that you're going to use for your in-ear monitors. And as you can see, these are set all the way across to pre-fader here. And then when you get over to your mix buses 11, 12, 13, 14, all your FX buses are going to be post-fader. Because when you apply a reverb to this vocal and you raise this up in the mix, you want that reverb to go up with it. So basically, this is all you need to set, just like it sets right here. Okay? Now we're going to look at the subgroup. Notice what happens when we get here. The subgroup is affected strictly by the fader. That's it. Wherever this fader is, you've got this going into this test group right here. It's wherever this fader position is. Okay? And that's what the subgroups are for. It's a totally different beast. So if we come up here to our meters again, you see? It's this fader now that's affecting that entire signal going into that mix bus. But again, for this particular video, put them on pre-fader. That's all you have to do, okay? Now, the second set of tap points we're going to look at is up in routing, and it's our outs 1 through 16. These tap points affect the faders for the outputs. So just like here, output number 1, that is going to my in-ear monitor. I want that, just like it sets right there, post-fader. I want this after the fader position, because more than likely, I'm going to be setting up my own in-ear monitor using an app on my phone. So I want to be able to control this. But with these, in X30T Edit, you just right mouse click on it if you need to change it, and then that'll bring up this menu. And if you look at this menu, it's exactly what we just went over in our other tap points for our channel sends and our bus sends. And we need to revisit that real quick here right after we get finished with this. So again, with these, this is where you want them. You don't want your main faders set to pre-fader. If you do this, then that means this master fader over here is not going to control that output. You see? See our main 7 and 8? So you would never want to do that because you're not going to have any control. So we go back up to routing. We take our mains and we put them back on post fader. And now, of course, our master fader controls our mains coming out of 7 and 8. Okay? Now, real quick, we're going to jump back over to the bus and matrix, and when we click on this, again, you'll see the tap points for the buses now going into the matrix. You have the input, pre-EQ, post-EQ, pre-fader, post-fader. And normally these are all set to post-fader. Okay? Now, you can set these matrix up many, many, many ways. And it's impossible for me to cover them all, but we're just right here, and we can send this to matrix number 1. That's it. So whatever now, because we sent this post fader, whatever this mix bus fader is, it's going to affect what goes into the matrix. And then as you can see, by sending it to matrix 1, we now have our signal coming over here to matrix 1. And you cannot send a matrix to a matrix. If we click on bus over here, we'll see where it goes right back to where we were. And then we can right mouse click this and just name it test matrix. Okay? And that's pretty well it, guys. That's going over these channel sends. Let me click it back up here on the sends tab here, as well as the bus sends on their tab, as well as the routing output tap points there. Okay? Take care. God bless. And we are out of here.